Everybody, it's Doug from the Point of Sale Data Minute and Crunchbox. I'm here with another LinkedIn Live and podcast episode of the Point of Sale Data Minute, available on your favorite podcast app. Joining me today is Peter Giannetti, Editor-in-Chief at Homepage News and Director of Editorial Content and Education at the International Housewares Association. And here he is on screen now. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Hey, that's a nice hand. I appreciate that.
We always give everyone a big round of applause when they join.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you joining me today. It's been a couple months in the planning. We found an open slot. There's lots of interesting stuff happening in the housewares industry. We got some changes to the 2024 Inspired Home Show that really excited me. So I'm glad we found a time to chat. And today we're going to have a little bit of an open forum. I'm just going to throw you some topics. You're going to give us your best review and your best answers with your years of experience in the industry. I'm looking forward to getting your take on some of the more current topics that are facing houseware suppliers and retailers as we kind of head into the back half of 2023. And we'll talk a little bit about what's happened over the first 6 months.
Sure.
So I guess one of the most recent occasions, so to speak, was Prime Day last week, where they had a record sales of just over 12 billion. They sold 375 million items. You know, some of the more popular categories were all houseware related. Just curious what your take was on Prime Day for the industry and your thoughts on whether that was successful and that kind of thing.
I think the one thing we can say is home goods and housewares products did really very well during Prime Day. You'll hear things from different outlets about different categories, but I think overall it was a good event for home and housewares. I mean, you've seen reports of solid traffic, but maybe dollars weren't as strong as the traffic gains. You've seen reports that the consumer response was a little tepid. I think what's happening right now with Prime Day and all of the other retailers that are jumping into this mid-year July timetable. I mean, we're getting a saturation of promotional activity in July. And I think that was interesting when it started a few years back. I think it was, accelerated by pandemic. It was accelerated by the need to maybe get a jump on the traditional promotional back half of the year. I think the consumer loves it, but I think the consumer is starting to realize that there are deals to be had throughout the year. Some consumers said, you know what, they didn't get involved with Prime Day because they do expect there's going to be good deals going forward. They're still awaiting a Black Friday. So I think the news is that maybe there's a saturation right now happening in this midsummer promotional event. Maybe the consumer, especially coming off of a challenging economic period, they're ready to get back on the horse, but they're still not spending at the same dollar levels that they are. The retailers in the industry have to realize now the promotional strategies are not locked into specific times anymore. I think the consumer is looking for opportunity throughout the year. I think you'll see a continual evolution of the promotional plan. And I think Prime Day is going to stay there, as will all the other events, but who knows what we're going to see. Maybe things are going to happen earlier in the year between now and Black Friday. I think being flexible, versatile, and kind of able to pivot promotionally is going to be real key going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary too. And I was reading that, some of these were planned purchases that the consumer had held off on, and a lot of them were just purchases they thought were a good deal. And to your point, maybe they're just going to wait and see like where's the price point going to land that's going to let them pull the trigger on that next purchase.
I think there was some thought a year or so ago, people were hearing about supply chain issues and maybe jump in early before the product's not in stock anymore. I'm not so sure that's going to be a prime motivator to jump into a promotional opportunity earlier. So again, be flexible, be there for the consumer tells you when they want things now. You can't necessarily tell the consumer when they want things.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary right there, right? And we also saw that the average purchase price was not high. So these were probably, mid to small range appliances from a price point standpoint, right? Or houseware goods. They weren't $150 type items they were buying.
Yeah, I think there's still price sensitivity in the marketplace right now. I think things are going to start turning as we kind of get through this holiday season into the next year. But the consumer's still, maybe gas prices aren't as high as they were. But I think there's this sort of lingering discretionary spend caution right now. So there's traffic, there's interest, there's demand, but there is a sensitivity to price. That said, I think the industry has an opportunity to kind of move from that sensitivity with innovation and new. I think we're hearing from retailers and we're hearing from suppliers that the retailers want new and promotional pricing kind of at the same time. Now you can't always get that with new product. So I think this balance of having opportunities, promotional opportunities, but also digging into new is going to be important. The industry kind of was discouraged from new during the height of the pandemic when everything was selling out. And then during the supply chain disruption when it was tough to get goods here. I think this year we saw a bigger wave of new introductions, and retailers want that, but it doesn't mean they don't want promotional pricing. Your ability to have your A and B as a supplier, your A and B products in stock this fall will be important because I think there's going to be demand. Retailers who've been somewhat inventory conservative and are going to be looking for goods, and they're going to go to those people who can ship them and ship them quickly, but they're going to want the best-selling items. So all of these things are sort of percolating right now in the marketplace. There's volatility, but things can be things will get better, and I'd like to see new product kind of drive that next wave of growth.
Yeah, I would too. I think it'd be good for the industry. Let's pivot. What's your take on Overstock and Bed Bath and Beyond and all the things that are happening over there?
Well, that's an interesting one. Obviously, the Bed Bath and Beyond saga of the past. I think the saga sort of kind of hit its peak the past couple of years, but it's been ongoing for a while. There were challenges at Bed Bath and Beyond for many years. The pandemic actually gave Bed Bath and Beyond a shot in the arm, if you will. But coming out of the pandemic, some of the strategies there were just didn't take the heavy move to private label, for instance, and maybe it was just too late for that retailer as is. So it liquidates. What people may not know about Overstock is that Overstock, beginning this year, late last year, had already begun sort of a transformation internally and beginning externally from being this sort of closeout opportunity buy driven digital commerce player to being a more full-fledged home products resource, one that was going to bring new strategy, new product, program buys into the mix. What it didn't have was a brand name. And hence, Bed Bath & Beyond brand name becomes available. I think we were all a little surprised to see that it sold for just around $21 million US, which maybe speaks to the devaluation of that brand a bit over the past several years. But that said, I can't think of a better known home and housewares retailing brand name than Bed Bath & Beyond right now. So it'll be interesting to see what Overstock does. They've already launched bedbathbeyond.ca in Canada. And coming soon will be bedbathbeyond.com. Overstock.com will become bedbathbeyond.com. I don't know exactly what we'll see from them. I know that they bring an established digital commerce infrastructure to that business, and Bed Bath & Beyond historically was late to the game on digital commerce. Mm-hmm. So I think the industry wants to see what they're going to be doing. I think they'll be announcing that very soon. I think they'll get more clarity on that very soon. I think the industry, while it had moved away to some degree from Bed Bath & Beyond as Bed Bath & Beyond kind of sunk into its problems, still was discouraged to lose perhaps the most significant home retailer that they had. Yes, they found other outlets for it, but not all other outlets are going to pick up 100% of what Bed Bath & Beyond did. So they're going to watch this. They're going to want to see assurances that there's a commitment to the brand going forward. I think they're going to want to see assurances that Overstock has clearly moved from its opportunity buy platform into a more into a programmed platform. But I think it's an exciting development, and it's good for the industry right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fully on board with that, and I think that, to your point, I was surprised at how little it went for.
Yeah, well, it's a great opportunity. Speaking of opportunity buys, if that's what Overstock used to do very well, they got quite an opportunity buy with the Bed Bath & Beyond branding.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's move along. Just kind of what do you feel the word on the street is from the suppliers that you hear from and write about, and same with the retailers. What do you feel the front half of the year had for hard or houseware suppliers, and what do you feel is in store for them as we head into the fall winter season?
Yeah, the front half of the year was challenging. You have to understand we're coming off of a exceptionally high demand that peaked during the pandemic. So it was unreasonable to expect that kind of demand to sustain itself. And then, compounded by supply chain disruption and then economic concerns, inflation, the downturn for home and house was, when you compare it to the peak of the pandemic, was inevitable. What's interesting is if you look sort of, and I don't want to get into all of the specific categories, but in certain categories, you'll find that houseware still is performing at better than pre-pandemic levels. But overall, it's down, and that's to be expected. Going in, I think there was some thought that things would start to loosen up going into the back half. And then as we head into 2024, I think we kind of hit that, we find that new sort of baseline, whatever that baseline is. And a little historical perspective, when you take away the anomalies of a pandemic, which was obviously a once in a lifetime scenario in terms of the demand it created and maybe the potential fall off from that demand, housewares is a category that generally does pretty well in tough economic times. It's the core of housewares is products that are essential and needed in basics. Okay, so housewares, when the world is going gung ho, housewares is usually kind of going up a little bit. When the world is going down, housewares doesn't fall off like as steeply as that. So I think we're going to get back to a situation where housewares is a normalized, consistent growth category, not prone to steep inclines and dips. But we need something to spark that right now. And I think that's where innovation, product innovation, newness, marketing innovation, taking advantage of all the new avenues to marketing that are available to brands and retailers right now to engage with the consumer. So I think this kind of return to new product and this return to innovation has a chance to be a catalyst. We'll see some of that, I think, opportunistically in the back half. I think we'll start seeing more of that as we head into 2024. But one other interesting dynamic related to the growth potential for housewares and what the industry can do to sort of drive it. And this was brought to me by a colleague of mine of Circana, Joe Derechowski, who's the home industry advisor at Circana, which is the merged entity of NPD and IRI, and you know them well. The typical replacement cycle for housewares, depending on category, maybe 5 years, 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. But when you look at the increase in sales of key items during the pandemic and the heavy usage of key items, whether it was a multi-cooker or a frying pan or whatever, a piece of cutlery, there is an opportunity now to maybe accelerate the replacement cycle in these high usage items. Consumers are either looking to trade up, maybe they use the product so much they're looking for a new product. So there may be a chance for this industry through innovation, through new marketing, through the reality of being more consumer focused than ever before, can sort of spark this new growth wave by maybe increasing the replacement cycle. So those are some of the things that I see going on.
Yeah, that's a great summary. That is really a great summary. And one thing I missed at the start is I wanted you to tell me a little bit about homepage news and those that'll watch our video today or the podcast, because a lot of what you've mentioned, I'm guessing, is written about each week in homepage news, delivered to emails across the globe. So why don't you tell us a little bit about homepage news, make sure we can get you a couple more subscribers.
So this is my infomercial portion of
the infomercial. Yes, exactly.
Homepage News is a B2B news and information platform, a digital platform that is operated by the International Housewares Association. I joined Homepage News in March of 2021 after 30 years with a publication called Homeworld Business, where I was the editor-in-chief there for many years. My partners and I there shut that down. IHA recognized an opportunity, Derek Miller, the association president, recognized an opportunity to bring an editorial component into the International Housewares Association, brought me on board. We launched Homepage News as that B2B platform in July of 2021, and we are a news and information resource for all facets of the industry. We are owned and operated by IHA, but we cover all trade shows. We cover trends, new products, retail developments. We do exclusive reports. We just launched a major report called the Insight Trend Index. And if you go to homepagenews.com, you'll see that. It's going to be an ongoing report that takes a look at new products seen throughout the trade shows over the past year, and puts them into sort of trend portfolios to help retailers and suppliers understand how products are tying into consumer trend. It could be design, it could be materials, it could be lifestyle. So Homepage News is out there to inform the business. You can go to homepagenews.com, and I really encourage you to subscribe to the homepagenews.com daily digest. We send that to everyone. We send that to people every day to help keep them up to date on what's going on.
Perfect. I get mine.
There you go. I know one of you is getting it at least, so thank you very much.
Well, let's talk about it's a great segue, I think, to talking about the International Houseware Association, the annual show that they host and put on at McCormick in Chicago. And let's talk about some of the changes that are on tap that they announced probably 6 weeks ago or so for 2024, which I think have been very well received by suppliers. And certainly I'm a big fan of the changes that have been proposed. So why don't we give everyone an update on that?
Sure. Well, the Homepage News hat that I wear was intrigued and excited about the news because that's significant news in the industry. But the hat I wear as director of content and education and editorial for the IHA sort of shares in this opinion that these changes were important for a couple of reasons. I'll give you a quick recap of the changes. Two major changes. First, the show was moved from 4 days to 3 days. It was on a Saturday through Tuesday cycle. It was moved to a Sunday through Tuesday cycle beginning in 2024. And there were a couple of reasons. The show is a little smaller as it grows back from where it was before the pandemic shut it down for a couple of years. I think the need to have that fourth day was sort of mitigated by that. And also people always tell us, that fourth day tends to be a slower day. They'd rather have a more cost-effective, productive and dynamic show over the course of 3 days. There are a couple other factors involved that are actually very important. We decided to do this on a Sunday through Tuesday rather than start on Saturday. A couple of reasons. For our Orthodox Jewish contingent, having a Saturday open was a challenge for them. So we recognize that. And also many of today's buyers, this generation of buyers, has told us that they don't want to work and travel on Saturdays. And we have to acknowledge that when we develop the trade show form. So 3 days, it'll be a full 3 days. It'll be chock. We think that concentration will make them a more productive 3 days. It'll save some money for those exhibitors that have to spend on T&E. So I think it's a win-win for everyone. So that's part one of the concentration of the show. Part two of the concentration of the show is people will recall we had 3 buildings at work in the past. The North, the South, and the Lakeside building, which was across the bridge. And that's where Appliances Wired and Well was housed. And that is one category that if you went to the Lakeside building the last couple of years, the whole hall wasn't being used. And there were other parts of the North Hall. And this is part of the regrowth of the show. It's a little smaller show. But we recognize that we have an opportunity to take the Wired and Well business, concentrate that in the North building where we have Clean and Contain. That's the storage organization and cleaning products. So half of the building will be Clean and Contain. Half of the building will be the small appliances, Wired and Well. And we will no longer be using Lakeside. That does take away the need for senior retail buyers to have to sort of walk and hurry from the South building over to the Lakeside building. And believe me, that's an issue. But I think more importantly now, we are able to concentrate the traffic and the dynamic activity of the show into North and South. There's going to be a much more convenient flow back and forth. The show will have a more buoyant feel to it. It's going to be more convenient. I think everyone's going to win. I think retailers will be more satisfied by how they can navigate the show, and I think the exhibitors are going to benefit from a busier flow of traffic, and I think just an overall more satisfied experience.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw there was two shows, as someone who would walk all three and have appointments in various booths, it's going to be nice just to kind of zigzag back and forth from one side to the other through the main hallway, where you can also find a chair to check email and do a little work, grab a coffee, etc.
There was one other thing about the change. We have an international sourcing area, which encompasses factories from China and others. That area has been concentrated also into the lower level of the north building, which again makes it easier for people to sort of see the factories in one convenient shot. So that's those. I think. Listen, the show is regrowing. It was a real good show in 2022, but it was smaller. We got back to a decent size in 2023, and we're going to be bigger in 2024. And we're going to be responsive and adaptive, and we're going to pivot as needed to serve the industry going forward.
Yeah, the show this past year, the 2023 show I got to attend, didn't make it to 2022, but the 2023 show felt like a show of old. There's a lot of buzz, lots of people, everyone was willing to talk to each other. It was a great 3-4 days that I had there. So I'm like I said, a fan of these changes. And I know when I first connected with you, I said, "What do you want to talk about?" And you said, "Well, I wanted to pick your brain on what was happening in the industry, of course, but you said, let's talk about the international or the Inspired Home Show." And I said, "You want to talk about that now?" And I said, "Don't you want to talk about that? Like, let's do another one September, October, or later in the year." And you're like, "No, because suppliers need to think about what they're doing now next year. Like, how do I plan for this show
Exactly.
so I maximize my return on investment?" So how would a supplier go about getting a booth? What's that looking like?
Well, we have a dedicated sales organization at the Inspired Home Show. If you go to inspiredhomeshow.com, you can begin to navigate, and if you're interested in exhibiting, that you can find ways to reach the appropriate person. The thing that's important to your point about starting early, we've made these changes, and as a result of that, the sales team is very actively assigning this booth space in the reconfigured hall right now, and we're pacing well ahead of last year. So it is now a time to make your commitment to attending that show and taking full advantage of the reconfiguration of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The sooner you book, the better booth you may get.
Yeah. Well, I don't get involved in those details, but you do the math. Yes. Yeah.
As someone who books the booth for our company here at Crunchbox, the sooner you get in, the more options you have. I'll put it that way. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of our time together, a full 23 minutes. I thought it was filled with some great content, Peter. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to having you as a guest again later this year. We should probably tee this up quarterly because you got so much great insight to share with the Houseware community, which is a large community in North America, and one I know that'll be interested to get your take on what's happening. And they can also get their weekly take on homepage news, so that's great as well.
Hey, so thanks, Doug. I enjoyed it. Yep.
Thanks for coming, and we'll chat with you again soon.
See you.
Everyone, that brings us to the end of another Point of Sale Data Minute podcast episode here on LinkedIn Live and YouTube. I'd like to thank Crunchbox for sponsoring today's episode, my friends at the Canadian Office Products Association, the Canadian Home Trade Products Association. They've helped get the message out, and to Homepage News and the IHA for also sharing all our posts on LinkedIn to build an audience today. You'll be able to watch this again on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Point of Sale Data Guy. On LinkedIn, I'm going to repost it, and then it will be available on your favorite podcast app. You can just listen to the audio from today. Peter provided us with some great info again. Thanks, Peter, for joining. Thanks for listening. And if you ever need any help with your point of sale data, please reach out to me. Happy to hear how I can potentially solve your point of sale data challenges. Have a great day, everybody.